Hello, my name is Peter Shea, and the book that I am doing a book report on for this assignment is called Preaching Contextually, and it is written by Anuparthi John Prabhakar, and it basically deals with preaching to the Dalit community in India. And in India, their culture looks a lot different than ours. That they operate under what is called a caste system. That Hinduism is one of their largest religions, and there is a Hindu caste system that basically levels people according to their holiness. And so, if you see this graph right here, it gives you an idea as to what the caste system looks like. That at the very top, we've got priests. And then right below that, we've got rulers and warriors. Below that, there are farmers and merchants. And then manual laborers down at the bottom. And then underneath that, we have Dalits. And these people are considered untouchables. In fact, they are considered so unholy that they don't even fall within the caste system. They are literally outcasts. And so the majority of Christians in India fall under that Dalit heading. And so this book is written to preach to that demographic. And one of the main points that the author makes in this book is that there's a different way to communicate to these communities. That in the Indian culture, it is much more of a collective culture rather than an individualistic culture. In fact, the author talks about what he calls mass movements, where an entire village will accept Christ and become Christian. That it's much less of an individual choice and much more of a collective choice. He also talks about how the Western way of preaching has been largely ineffective because of some of these reasons, because of how we do tend to focus on individual salvation rather than collective salvation, and that we don't fully understand their context and their daily lives, which is really important to them, being able to have somebody preach into their life situations rather than just big theological ideas. And even their traditional communication style is different than ours. That they use a lot of storytelling, they use a lot of music, they use a lot of dancing. And so somebody getting up and doing a lecture on Christianity doesn't have the same impact as, say, a narrative approach to preaching. And then finally, the author makes a call to preachers to preach to these people differently. Like I said, it's been largely ineffective in a Western approach. And so the author comes up with a proposal at the end of the book as to how we should approach preaching to the Dalits in India in this context. And what's even more interesting is that the author would suggest that we don't even preach from a pulpit, because they see the pulpit as a place of authority, and in their life situation, the authority figures are not good to them in any form or fashion. They are a very much oppressed people. And so he would suggest that even removing yourself from the pulpit and getting in and among the people is a better way to reach Dalits than standing up there at an elevated position. The only couple of critiques that I have of the book is that there are quite a few grammatical errors. That you can tell that English is not his first language, and sometimes whole paragraphs are copied and then pasted into different sections. It never was to the point where I couldn't understand what the author was saying, but it did kind of distract me a little bit. And then finally, the second critique that I would have is that he spends a lot of time on the background, on the history of the Dalit community, which is good, and he spends a lot of time on previous preaching and why it didn't work, which is good. But I would say about 90% of the book was all background, and about 10% was teaching us how to approach these people in an appropriate manner. And I would have appreciated a little bit more time learning how to approach these people, but I totally understand that we need to understand where they've been in order to understand how to speak to them. So those are the only two small critiques that I would have. I would say the thing that impacted me the most is the idea that narrative preaching has the potential to be extremely effective. And I would imagine that it would even be effective here in our Western culture as well, that people live life through stories. And being able to capture that and do a sermon in a narrative form, I think could be a really, really cool thing. And I think it could be extremely powerful and effective. And so one of the takeaways is that the pulpit may not be the best place to preach from. That sometimes getting in and among the people is a powerful way to reach them. The second thing is that sometimes preaching community salvation is more effective than preaching individual salvation. That especially in their culture, they wouldn't want to be saved if they couldn't bring their family with them. And so being able to preach collective salvation, I think could be extremely effective. And so I would highly suggest reading this book. It's awesome. There's a lot of really kind of light bulb moments, and I think that you would really enjoy it. So, thank you.